You're not gonna make it. No, you ain't gonna make it. You're not gonna make it, but you can. Welcome to You're Not Gonna Make It, the show where I discuss threats that may prevent you from making it. I'm Kevin. Carbs are bad. Okay. At least that's what the internet and commercials would lead you to believe, that carbohydrates, 1/3 of the macronutrients that we need to live, are bad. Ain't that fucking crazy? But yes, in the year 2025, people still believe that. Why? Well, because it's easier to, make an enemy and say, that's why I can't lose weight. That's why I'm unhealthy. Instead of looking at the whole picture and the whole gamut of their shitty ass habits. All right, let me chill out. Who am I getting mad at right now? So the carbs are bad myth is one of the weirdest, most persistent fitness, weight loss myths that still to this day affect how people eat and all this stuff. Carbohydrates are blamed for weight gain, diabetes, other stuff. So people are hating on bread, rice, pasta, which is kind of wild because if you look at, the average French, Italian, and Japanese person, the biggest purveyors of bread, pasta, and rice, they're not overall fat. So it's kind of weird, right? Kind of sus, not gonna lie. Like I said before, carbohydrates are one of the 3 macronutrients along with proteins and fats. They are the preferred energy source for your body. They're basically the first to go. Let's say you're exercising, you're walking, right? You're pretty fine when you're walking. You're using I think fats, some proteins there. But when you're doing a sprint, you got to catch the bus. You're using energy that comes from carbohydrates there. I mean, there's mixing and matching with all this shit, but carbs are the biggest and best energy source that you have. The one that lasts you the longest on the lower intensity is more like fats, but carbs are so helpful just to have energy. If you're an athlete, you're eating a lot of carbohydrates because you fucking need it. So why do people think carbs are bad? Well, there's a kernel of truth to the carbs make you fat thing, and it's not just that simple of a statement. Here is the thing. Carbohydrates by themselves are not bad. Vegetables are basically mostly carbohydrates and or fiber, which is also carbohydrates. But the thing is, a lot of food that makes you crave them, pastries, candy, garbage food, those are generally full of carbohydrates, not even a great version of them, and they don't fill you, but they're really easy to eat, and they're nice. They taste good. So the issue is that the foods that can taste basically the best in the world, scientifically speaking, the ones that can make you enjoy them the most are the ones that are have so many calories in them, but so little satiety in them that it makes you feel like you're getting ripped off with the food. You're like, I ate all this stuff, tastes good, but I'm still hungry. And I ate 800 calories just now. That's hard to do with other stuff. If you eat a really high protein food, you're probably going to be full. If you eat a really high fat food, you're definitely going to be full. When you eat a lot of carbohydrates, depending on what kind they are, you're probably not going to be full. More specifically, if you eat, either garbage or bread, rice, and pasta, which I don't consider to be garbage. But if we're talking bang for buck in terms of being full, not so great. Although some breads are pretty good, like challah bread, my God, that can be filling as hell. Some pasta can be filling as well. Rice, it can be all these things can be filling if you pair them with, proteins and fats. If you're just eating rice, just eating pasta, no sauce or anything for some reason, you can probably eat a lot, and not be full. So it kind of makes sense that people are eating a bunch of carbohydrates and they're like, oh man, I'm getting fat. First of all, they're not tracking their food, because if you track your food, you can eat literally anything and still lose weight because you know about the energy going in you and you can plan for that. But let's say you're one of those intuitive eaters who just guess. You're eating a shit ton of carbohydrates that are not filling, which are a lot of them, to be fair. You're going to eat a lot of this stuff and I'm listening to my body. I'm still hungry. I'm going to eat more. Well, you probably ate 1,300 calories just now, first of all. So if you eat more carbohydrates, it's probably not going to be fun for you. But that's not the fault of the carbohydrates. It's the fault of you for not keeping track of your food, or choosing better food options. Because if you have more proteins, more fats, like I said, you will feel more full. But with refined carbohydrates, that's usually not how it is. So the real problem is not the carbohydrates themselves, but the overconsumption of them. There are tons of cultures, like I mentioned before, referencing Japan once again, Italy and France. A lot of these cultures, they have high carb diets and they have low rates of obesity and not nearly as much, related disease as we do in America. Why? Well, because carbohydrates are not inherently fattening or bad. It's just that us in America, we make gluttony an art form and we just go hog wild on stuff. And as you can guess, if you cut out 1/3 of your macronutrients, you're going to have nutritional deficiencies, which can reduce your energy level, your athletic performance, and food affects your brain too. So you're going to have issues with mood probably and, thinking. Food's pretty important, guys. And one of the interesting things is that in this time of, social media being the arbiter of truth, basically, whatever's most popular is what most people think. This also goes hand in hand with the popularity of bodybuilding as the default form of exercise. So for bodybuilding, I've trained like a bodybuilder for, I don't know, like maybe two years of my life or something. I don't know. And I switched to like powerlifting stuff because it was more, I like the movements better and it carried over into everything. Then I switched over to, calisthenics, stuff like that. But anyway, I started off essentially training like a bodybuilder. I'm talking doing specific exercises for specific muscles, only caring about weights, stuff like that. And I can tell you, no offense to these guys who are bodybuilders, like it takes a lot of work, a lot of energy, a lot of discipline, a lot of effort, right? But you only need to sustain that effort for like 3 seconds per rep tops, right? And if you're training as a bodybuilder, your rep range is probably, well, it depends, I guess. But once you're done with the set, like you're good. You only have to sustain that energy for a relatively short amount of time. And if you're actually bodybuilding, you have rest times that are longer than a minute. And it can go up to 5 minutes depending on what you're doing. When you're going for a 1 rep max in a squat, for example, that's totally common working your way up to have rest times of 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes in between. So your body actually gets time to recover for that. But putting these together, a lot of people who look at the most popular stuff, they think bodybuilding equals exercise, right? When they look at popular people and information saying carbs are not that important because I'm strong, I'm fit, I'm huge, and I don't eat carbs. I just eat steak. Now, here's why this tricks a lot of people. If you're bodybuilding, you don't need a lot of fucking energy. You're not jogging. Granted, it's challenging, but you're just lifting shit for several seconds and then pausing for a while. You don't need that sustained energy. So my point is, people like that, they're probably not feeling the lack of carbohydrates because they're not using forms of training that would make that obvious. For example, if you swim or jog or something like that, use exercise bike, whatever, you have no carbohydrates, you're going to be feeling that shit. Or you're going to have to lower your intensity to a very low level, just walking basically. So this is to say, when you see all these big ass guys online saying, I don't eat carbs, fuck that shit. It's because they don't, we all need carbs, but what they're training to do, they don't feel the hurt of the lack of carbs because they're not using a shit ton of energy. Not in the way that carbs would help with anyway. So just throwing that out there, you see someone who's doing a sport or something that requires a lot of energy, they're not cutting out carbs. They are not. Ask a soccer player. Cutting out carbs would kill them. Anyway, people who fall for this stuff, the carbs are bad myth, are people who, I feel like I say this every time, people who fall for this are beginners who don't know any better. And they're falling for, the fad diets. I don't know if cutting carbs, I guess that counts as a diet, right? It's like a partial elimination diet, I guess. Although I find it to be kind of excessive to cut out 1/3 of macronutrients. Now, elimination diets and cutting out things can be helpful if there's a reason for it. Let's say you go to a doctor, you're like falling apart on the inside. Your doctor's like, all right, we got to figure out what the fuck is happening. So just stop eating a bunch of shit and then slowly bring stuff in so we can see what's happening. So in that sense, it can be useful. You're treating your diet like a scientific experiment. Cutting stuff out, bringing stuff back in and seeing how it treats your body. But just because some thick guy online said carbs are bad, okay, Don't fucking cut carbs out for that reason. That's fucking stupid. This is the same exact thing as the whole no fat, low fat type of thing that you see plastered on foods here. Listen, all these things are good. Carbohydrates, proteins, fats. Intentionally lowering them for no reason whatsoever is fucking stupid. If you want to lower anything in the hopes of losing some weight, you need to lower your caloric intake. That's what matters. You can eat, I wouldn't recommend this at all, but you can eat purely fat or purely carbohydrates or purely protein and lose or gain weight depending on the amount of calories. Now, if you're eating enough just fats to gain weight, you're probably gonna die because that's a shit that's a shit ton. But all these macronutrients are very helpful in their own ways. So cutting them out or reducing them for no reason or in the hopes of gaining weight when what you really should be lowering is your calories is not good. And it's mostly a marketing thing. Low carb foods for people who want to lose weight because they, in their mind, they consider carbohydrates, they equal, pastries and other shit that doesn't really fill you but gives you a lot of calories and makes you overweight if you eat too many of them. Low fat is more like, hey, you're fat. You want to be less fat? Eat stuff with low fat. Even though that makes no fucking sense because dietary fat does not translate into excess body weight necessarily. Again, that's a caloric thing. You never see foods that are like, oh, low protein, because people associate, oh, protein, that means like the bodybuilders, the people who look strong and cool and good, right? Yes, I want that. Never will you see low protein foods because there's already an idea attached to protein as a whole. It's just that equals muscles and that equals good, which is true. Muscles are good. You need to have the hugest muscles in the world, but your body needs to have some organic armor on it. Otherwise, if you fall over, you're going to just break over. You're gonna break yourself because you're just skin and bones. Anyway, a lot of marketing is effective. Let's play devil's advocate. Low carb diets work for weight loss, so carbs must be bad. That's fucking dumb. Low carb diets probably involve you giving up a lot of the shitty food that, like I said, is calorie dense, below in nutrients and satiety. So cutting out those excess calories that don't fill you, yeah, probably helps you lose weight. Idiot. Carbs spike insulin, and insulin makes you store fat. I'm actually studying for my precision nutrition certification right now, and let me just check because I read about insulin like an hour ago. Insulin sourced pancreas. It works in response to blood sugar, and it signals satiety. Oh, that's interesting. That'd be a good thing that would help prevent you from being fat because your body feels satisfied. As for the insulin makes you store fat, there's some truth to it, but that only applies to excess energy, which again goes back to the calorie stuff. Hey, you eat too much, your body keeps it for sure, but it's not carbs' fault. Our ancestors didn't eat as many carbs, so we shouldn't either. Is that even true? I mean, I don't know if they ate a lot of carbs or a little bit of carbs or whatever, but they definitely did not eat as much as we do now because we can create carbs out of fucking thin air with dog shit junk food. So yeah, that right on his face, this statement falls flat just from that. And also our ancestors had shitty teeth and they died at like, I don't know, way earlier than we do. So some things they did was cool, but a lot of it they didn't have the tech or the knowledge. So let's not copy ignorant people. Cutting carbs cured my cravings and helped me lose weight. Again, you're probably eating a bunch of pastries and donuts and shit. So sure, yeah, that would help you out. But it wasn't the carbs. It was the food that wasn't good for you. Sugar is toxic, so carbs are dangerous. I'm gonna skip this one because it's too stupid. Well, okay, let me not be that guy. Sugar's toxic. Sugar's toxic. Wow. Oh wait, just in case anyone hasn't caught on by now, when I make these episodes, I have AI kind of help me with some of the stats and stuff like that. And I've added a new section, as you probably realized recently, called Devil's Advocate, where I'm saying, hey, argue against whatever the fuck I'm talking about, or argue for what I'm talking about. And some of the arguments it throws at me, this is an interesting one. Sugar's toxic. Wow. I don't know how to respond to that. I guess anything can be toxic. The dose makes the poison. But no, all carbs are not dangerous. Keto and carnivore diets are the healthiest way to eat. No, those are really dense. I mean, They have big deficits of carbohydrates, a macronutrient that you need for energy and other things. So, no. Let me run through some stats quick. These latest episodes are getting too long. By the way, if you like them long, wink, put that in the comments, I guess. I don't want to take like an hour for this shit, but, let me know if it being longer than like 15, 16, 17 minutes is annoying as shit. The average American gets about 50% of daily calories from carbohydrates. Yet obesity rates have risen largely due to increased calorie intake from all macronutrients, not just carbs. Yeah, I know. Multiple large-scale studies, including the PURE study, P-U-R-E, study of 135,000 people in 18 countries, found that high carb intake from whole foods is not associated with higher mortality, but high intake from refined carbs is, which means the quality of carbohydrates matters. If you're eating those, I don't know what you call those, like those cereal bars, the one where it's like a bunch of stuff held together by gelled sugar or whatever. Yeah, you eat a bunch of those in place of, let's say, a bunch of vegetables or like sourdough bread or something. I mean, yeah, those carbs will probably kill you earlier because they're lacking in nutrients and stuff. But it's not the carbohydrates themselves as a whole. But yeah, if you eat the worst type of something, it's not going to help over time. Populations with traditional high-carb diets, such as Okinawans and Sardinians, which, if you don't know, are basically, as of right now anyway, the Okinawa is like the healthiest part of Japan. Sardinia is the healthiest part of Italy. They have high-carb diets and have some of the lowest rates of obesity and the longest lifespans in the world, along with somewhere in Costa Rica, somewhere in California, Loma Linda Valley, whatever, California, somewhere in Costa Rica, I forgot where. Where's that fifth zone, the blue zone where people live forever? I forget where it is. I think it's somewhere in Greece. Don't quote me on that, though. Anyway, they have a whole bunch of other reasons why they live such a long time, but eating carbohydrates doesn't hurt them. Interesting. Low-carb diets can lead to initial rapid weight loss, but about a year later, the weight loss difference between like a low-carb diet and balanced diets are negligible. Which means at the beginning, if you stop eating fucking donuts, you're going to lose a bunch of weight. Wowzers. And here is the thing, as well, in terms of macronutrients. People say carbs are bad, carbs are bad. Do you know how many of your daily macronutrients should come from carbs? Do you know? Probably not. It's actually between like 40 and 60. You want to split the difference. About half of your daily calories should include carbohydrates. So to cut that out, it's fucking absurd. And if you want some extra stuff, the rest of them should be kind of split up like 30, let's say like 50% carbs, 35% or 30% proteins, and then like 15, 20% fats, like that. It should be mostly carbohydrates, then a bunch of protein, and then the rest should be smaller, should be fats. Obviously, depending on your goals, in terms of athletic performance and health, these can be played with a bit, but that's kind of where it's going to be for the most part. Mostly carbs, second protein, last fats. So keep that in mind when people say, oh, cut the carbs. Yeah, no. Only 10% of Americans meet the recommended daily intake for fiber, most of which comes from carbohydrates-rich food, like fruits, vegetables, whole grain stuff, beans. And what this says is, yeah, Americans don't really eat vegetables. At my day job, usually when there's a big meeting, we have catering brought in. It's not like a rich asshole, but no, it's just like a big table with food that we ordered for the gigantic staff that we have. And oftentimes there is, salad part, some other vegetable stuff. Let me tell you, that goes damn near untouched almost every time. And I know this because when the people get up to it in line to, they're getting their food, they kind of just, they look at it and just keep walking. I'm like, hey, that would be helpful. You want to try that out? But that's just how it is. Salads and vegetables are not very appealing to people. And, to be fair, if you don't put some dressing or, some seasoning or shit on there or other interesting vegetables, it can be boring. So I get that. But man, avoiding it entirely is very common. Over 70% of Americans report confusion about which foods contain good versus bad carbs, which makes them possibly unnecessarily cut out and restrict some of their diet and blah, blah, blah. You can classify carbohydrates, I guess, if you want as good or bad, if they're super refined or not, whatever. I prefer, I mean, I do call foods dog shit and bad and stuff like that, but I think it is useful, more useful to consider foods, good bang for buck or bad bang for buck. So how do you get some good bang for buck? Eat your fucking vegetables, eat your fruits, eat your legumes, eat better bread, like sourdough and stuff like that. If your bread is super white and soft, it's probably nutritionally dead. And honestly, the same goes for rice too. If you have a choice over white rice versus brown, yellow, any other kind, the white one has, if I'm not mistaken, the least amount of nutrients in it. So, I mean, it tastes good though, but if you want bang for buck, that's not where you go. Don't fear carbohydrates. You should be worrying about caloric intake. That's the C word you should be worried about. And honestly, even if a food is like low carb, but it's like ultra processed lab made bullshit, then that's something you should also look into. That's kind of a more important metric than the carbohydrates in the food. Yeah, just in general, ignore diets or fads that say, hey, cut out 1/3 of the food you should be eating as a human being. Just ignore that. Same for cutting out fats. That's fucking crazy. Like, just take this away from this whole episode. Have about half of your intake for the day be carbohydrates. And again, I don't think I mentioned it this episode, but foods are not just, oh, this food is all carbohydrates. This is all proteins. The majority of food has a makeup that includes carbohydrates and or proteins and or fats. So look into that. But about half of what you take in for the day should be carbohydrates. Then about 1/3 should be proteins and the rest fats. If you literally just follow that, you'll be in better health than the majority of Americans. I was going to say the majority of people, but other countries have it kind of figured out. We're kind of extra stupid over here. So you will outpace most Americans in terms of health and nutrition if you just follow that hierarchy. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever forgot or ever fell for carbohydrates? You forgot that you need them to live well anyway? I think I fell for that when I was younger. I forget. I think I fell more for the low fat, no fat thing before, though. Because obviously you see fat, you're like, oh, less fat. Yeah, I want to be less fat, sure. But yeah, I don't remember about the carb stuff. But most people still think, oh man, it's really bad. So let me know in the comments if you fell for that. And if so, I hope you won't fall for it in the future. Anyway, I hope you make it, and I'll see you next time.